Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, getting ready to start my day, get my breakfast, get some squats going. And I had a subscriber ask me a couple days ago in one of my videos discussing strength gains, you know, how much strength you should gain, muscle, all that stuff for lifters. And he pointed out, he's like, look, you always mention this stuff from the perspective of healthy young men. You always say healthy young men should gain X amount of muscle, X amount of strength. That this is the rough range of what they should be gaining in a certain amount of time if they're average genetics. What about older guys? Why don't you discuss that in more detail? Well, number one, we don't have a big body of evidence. Number two, most people who are new to lifting are going to be younger guys. In other words, 90% of people out there right now who go to YouTube, who are first year lifters, they've been training seriously for 1 year or less, up to including not at all, who come to YouTube looking for information are going to be under the age of 30. They're going to be under the age of 30. That's the biggest demographic, therefore that's the people we need to discuss the most. But the thing is, yeah, we do know it's going to be a little bit slower the older you get. However, there's some advantages and disadvantages that come with that compared to other ages. And now some people are going to say, when I jump into some of this in a minute, younger guys are going to be like, well, I'm not like that. I'm like, well, you're the exception to the rule. But if you look around your gym and look around your friends you know who maybe start lifting or work out, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. And this stuff's even worse when you're talking about teenagers. Even if they're 18, 19 years old, they're still teenagers. They're in a teenage mindset. They're going to be discipline problems as a general rule. And if you're the exception to that rule, that's fantastic. You're going to be more successful than the other people you know because you're the exception to the rule. But keep that in mind, you are the exception. But with older lifters, in terms of actual muscle and strength potential, it's a little bit lower with each decade. And I can't give you an exact figure there. I can't look at this and say, okay, well, if you start training when you're 35 instead of 25, you're going to gain approximately 8.2% less strength and 8.7% less muscle per month on this program. We don't have that sort of data to draw from. But it's fair to say, because number one, hormone levels are a little bit lower, right? Your testosterone starts declining around 25. And recovery can start to slow down, particularly connective tissue, things like that. And you've probably, and this is another factor with age, you've probably accumulated more injuries. You've probably accumulated more injuries over time, depending on how your life has gone. You've probably broken more bones, been hurt more. You've had more life experiences of one type or another that you probably have accumulated more injuries throughout your body and damage to your body that has scar tissues or has left some sort of negative effect. It's going to affect training, recovery, things like that. With every decade of age, you as demographics of people, we will have accumulated more injuries. There are exceptions to the rules. Obviously, there are 15-year-olds who've broken 37 bones in their body and are missing a leg. You know, then there are also guys who are in their 60s who've never had any major injury of any type. They've never had to have any type of surgery. They've never had to have a cast on anything. They've never pulled anything. They've never torn anything, never broke anything. But those are the exceptions to the rule. They're the exceptions we're talking about as an average. You know what? That's going to affect this. And it's fair to say that if you start training when you're 35 versus, say, 25, you are probably going to gain a tiny little bit less muscle and strength per month. I don't know, 1%, 5%, I don't know, something in that range. If you start training when you're 45 instead of 35, guess what? You are probably going to gain a little less muscle and strength than you would have had you started at 35. For every month that you train, it's going to take you a little longer to reach your goals. Now, is this to say that a guy who starts training at 45 is only going to make a third of the gains that a guy at 25 does if it was the same guy? You know, as far as genetics, potential things like that? No, probably not. Probably not. He's going to gain the majority. He's still going to be able to make most of his gains. I would expect that even someone who starts training at 45 could make half or more of the gains that he could have made had he started 20 years earlier. Right? At least half, maybe 2/3, maybe even 80%, maybe 90%. But is that big of a deal? If he would have gained 15 pounds of muscle and he started at 25, so what? He's going to gain 10, 11. You know, it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, because your other option is to not train at all. Well, if I'm going to gain a little slower than had I started earlier, I'm just not going to bother. That's your other option, and that's not a viable option. That's not a good way to stay healthy and fit for the rest of your life. You just say, well, I'm just too old, so I'm going to gain, I don't know, 30% less muscle and strength for every month of effort I put in. Well, older people tend to commit to things more as a long-term endeavor anyways. A lot more kids start and burn out. And then we kind of come to the other point with consistency, because I had someone tell me in the same question, well, you know, I don't know. Also, when you talk about these, talk about people in a perfect environment. What about someone whose diet's not on point? Well, if your diet's not on point, all right, on point diet, not from a bodybuilding perspective, because a bodybuilder whose diet's on point is just usually stay lean. How lean can I stay? If we're talking about gaining muscle and strength, your diet being on point is, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough calories? Are you getting enough micronutrients to recover and grow, right? In other words, are you eating enough total whole foods? Are you getting enough quality nutrition in there? The other part about people's diet being on point is a perfect diet so they can minimize fat gain. So, you know, they make sure that they gain very, very little fat. Well, that's very hard to do when you're bulking or trying to gain muscle. And people need to accept that. Gaining muscle quickly while gaining no body fat really is only done with drugs. You can make nice, really slow gains. So what I would say diet on point is that the consumption of whole foods, getting quality food. Well, again, this is where younger guys are going to get upset. I find 35-year-old men have no trouble eating whole food. In other words, when you start chatting with them, and this is the biggest problem I have seen when you try to give teenagers advice, getting them to eat actual real food sometimes can actually be a problem. They go, oh man, I don't want to eat steak and potatoes for dinner every night. You're not going to find a 35-year-old man who's going to tell you, oh man, I just can't really eat meat and starches, and I can't force myself to eat that stuff. You're not going to find a grown man who says, oh yeah, I can't eat vegetables, I can't eat a side salad, it'll make me throw up. I just don't like that stuff. I don't like green things. Can't I just eat Pop-Tarts, Cheetos, and then drink a protein shake and take a multivitamin? I really like Pop-Tarts. That's what I like to eat. I don't like to eat that other stuff. I like to eat the stuff my mom cooks. You actually get that, and it's as ridiculous as that sounds. I've heard this sort of nonsense from younger guys. So I think it's the opposite. I think you're less likely to get quality nutrition in someone who's 18 or 20 than you are someone who's 35. I think the 35-year-old has no trouble eating normal food, and they will never turn down, oh man, you telling me if I eat an extra serving of steak every night for dinner it'll help me gain muscle? Awesome. I just got to throw some extra broccoli on the side? Okay, I don't mind some steamed broccoli. And they're probably more financially stable in order to afford quality food. I think that you end up with better dietary adherence for someone who's 35 or 40 than you do from someone who's 18. Because you're never going to see the older guy say, oh man, I just can't force myself to eat steak and potatoes. Oh, I have to eat a salad. I want to eat Pop-Tarts all day. I really like Twinkies. You're not going to see that, but you will see that with 18-year-olds. And that's usually the biggest issue you have with nutrition as 18-year-olds, is getting them to eat real food. It's oftentimes they just want a quick fix, fast food. You know, they don't want to cook anything, or they definitely don't have a wife or a partner or anything else going on in their house to where they're going to get real food. They probably don't have a job to where their lunch break they can go out and actually buy a real meal. You don't see it as often. Again, dietary adherence is lower. And a lot of you guys are like, well, I'm not like that. Well, you're the exception to the rule. Congratulations. You're probably going to be more successful as a result of that. It's just a problem I've noticed. The same thing when it comes to training. Older lifters tend to spend a little more time researching before they jump into it. Someone who's 35 who decides to get into working out is going to spend a little bit more time researching what they're doing before they jump headfirst into it. They're less likely to immediately jump into bro culture and just become a curl monkey. They're less likely to jump from program to program with ADHD. They're less likely to do stupid stuff and just burn themselves out in the gym with bad form, training everything to exhaustion and failure till they either get hurt or burn out. All right, we see that very frequently. Younger lifters, they're more likely to have what I call exercise ADHD. They're less likely to stick a program out. Like you usually find, the biggest problem, again, the diet is the biggest problem, and then the other biggest problem is going to be for younger lifters is sticking to a proven program for 6 months or a year straight. Doing it, getting them to get on one program is a proven system by good coaches, and following that program all the way through for a year is actually relatively rare in younger lifters. Older lifters, it's not. I mean, I one of the gyms I went to before, back when I was filming at that one gym last year for a little while before we had all the problems with that, I knew 5 guys at that gym who were all over 30. Most of them in their 40s, who were all, say, running starting strength. Every one of them were logging what they were doing. They were following the program to the letter. Now, we could argue, if people will argue, well, starting strength's not ideal for this or that. Well, you could make that argument. But the fact of the matter is they were following it to the letter. They were trying to perform all their exercises correctly. I mean, some of them were even chatting with me, hey, you know, what does my form look like on this? Am I doing this right? And they would have each other look at it when they were there, because they were all on the program and all read the same book, and they were following their program and writing down in a log what they were doing. They were consistent. Whereas in the kids, whatever new body part split they saw somewhere, and they'd switch from month to month. They had no clue what they were doing in terms of a system. So you guys got to remember that also. That is a factor. So even though potential might be lower for a guy who's starting at 40, because again, he's accumulated injuries, he's got a little less testosterone, he's got other issues going on there. He's more likely to be eating real food. He's more likely to get enough protein. He's more likely to get enough vegetables. He's more likely to consistently follow a program without doing dumb stuff that's going to get him hurt or get him burned out. He's going to be more consistent. That gives him an advantage. Because in spite of all their potential, I mean, we always say this, an 18-year-old has all this testosterone. They've accumulated no injuries. Most of them don't even have particularly stressful lives yet. They should be able to go in and get enormously big and strong for a natural inside of a year. They should be able to go in and just destroy it. The overwhelming majority of them don't, because they goof off. They don't get enough quality nutrition to actually gain the muscle. They don't get enough sleep to recover. And then they goof off in the gym. They're not consistent. So the overwhelming majority, 95% of them, don't really see gains. They really don't. You go look at the gym, their gains are mediocre at best. So there's other factors at play that you have to factor in. But if we talk about everything in a perfect environment, which is less likely to be right in a younger lifter, yeah, the younger lifter should gain more. They absolutely should. But the older lifter still can make fantastic gains if they do everything right. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.